Good evening, good afternoon, good night, good morning to everyone joining us around this mid-season bonfire. As always, I'm Alan the Pole with a goal, and we got the classic crew here. I am joined by my lovely, jubbly co-host, Tim.
Hey, if you had just given that goal to the Chicago Fire, they would have walked out with a point against San Diego. But hey, I get that you just have a goal and it's yours and you don't want to share. So I'm sure the team understands.
Yeah. I'm not the Pole with the goals, plural. It's just one goal. And DJ. Hello. How's the weather down there?
Hot. Too hot.
It is definitely hot up here as well. If especially humid, it's just ugh. So, but hopefully you guys are listening and gathering around our bonfire in the most comfortable way, probably in your AC cooled car. So let's get right into the news before we talk about the first game between the Fire and San Diego at Soldier Field. Chicago Fire 2, unfortunately, their unbeaten streak has come to an end. They faced off against New England Revolution 2, and they lost 4-3.
Yep, it's unfortunate. Liam Butts had a brace, so, that's a...
Brace for butt.
Yeah. Teammate of Omari Glasgow on the Guyanese national team. So I don't know. I assume that Glasgow is probably there to see Butts. And that's about as far as I can take this joke at the moment.
Nonetheless, Fire 2, in my opinion, are doing fairly well for themselves. And so keep on pushing, boys. We believe in you. In other news, Gaga Slonina with Chelsea have won the Club World Cup. The Club World Cup final happened just recently as of recording, where Chelsea thrashed PSG 3-0. So technically Gaga's on the squad, so you can say he won the Club World Cup.
He wasn't just technically on the squad. I mean, he didn't play, but he was on the bench and everything for the match. So he made the lineup for the game. So I guess as it stands right now, he has done a trophy lift with Donald Trump, which is a weird sentence that I never thought we'd be saying on this podcast, or maybe any person would be saying in the history of humanity.
No, it felt very surreal, in my opinion, just seeing Donald Trump sitting with the FIFA president with the trophy in front of him, and then him giving the trophy to Chelsea. It was a low-key surreal moment. So, but nonetheless, to all our Fire/Chelsea fans, congratulations. I know Vadim from Barn Burners is probably very happy about it. Our last piece of news is Los and Stechny are going to college. Can you elaborate, Tim?
Yeah, Patrick Los and Patrick Stechny both... I know at least one of them was offered a pro contract. They both decided to go the college route, which you honestly can't blame guys for it. I mean, there's certainly security, right? And just getting a degree and not having to pay for it if you're on an athletic scholarship, which accepting a pro deal would prohibit. And they, are close to each other. There's a great interview that Alex Calabrese did with him that is up on Minaret 97 to get the full story. And yeah, I mean, I think that we all wish them well. They both are very promising goalkeepers, and it wouldn't be the craziest thing to see them potentially come back to the Fire, at least one of them or both at different points, or who knows, if their future does have the professional game in it.
Yeah, I mean, Mauricio Pineda did it. He went to, if I remember correctly, North Carolina, and then he came back to the Fire. So who knows? And again, the Chicago Fire Academy is a goalkeeping machine. It just keeps pumping out, keeps on producing incredible goalkeepers. And like mentioned, Alex has the full story at meninred97.com. Go check it out, please.
And beware attackers in the Big Ten next year, because they're both going. Stechny is going to Wisconsin, and Los is going to Michigan.
Ooh, Big Ten rivalry coming up. So let's get into part one of our main topic here, and that is the game against San Diego. Unfortunately, the Fire lost 2-1 with Anders Dryers scoring in the 8th minute in the first half, and then again in stoppage time to make it 2-0. There was a bit of controversy with that first goal, that he was very close to being offsides. I know a lot of people have been like showing different angles and saying it was onside, it wasn't off, it was offside. So, what do you guys have to say about that?
From the press box, it looked clearly off to me. I thought when the goal happened, it looked like it was just a delayed call, which is what the officials are sort of told to do, so that they continue the play and then they raise the flag and then it's called offside on the pitch, and then VAR can take a look if necessary. And that's not what happened here. It was ruled on the pitch, and I think that a number of us, I think, including people in the media deck that where the broadcasts are from, as well as us in the press box, all seem to think that it was probably off. Having said that, though, I think that the goal in some ways, if it's off, then it shouldn't have counted, right? Then it's not a story. But I think that the way that it happened was eerily familiar to Fire fans, where it was miscommunication playing out of the back, which when we talked to Chris Brady after the game, he did own up. He said, I'll take that one, like meaning it's on me, for not understanding the way that Mauricio Pineda wanted the ball played to him. And that caused a giveaway, which combined with some fairly shoddy defending from a number of Fire players, including Brian Gutierrez, who moved out of his position and left his man unmarked, I think led to the situation where it could have been an offsides goal rather than being an absolute nothing burger, and the game would have just continued. And I think that the issue is that that's not the first time that this has happened for the Fire in 2025. Now, I mean, again, like things happen, but after the game, Greg Berhalter said that both goals were essentially preventable errors, and this certainly was a preventable error from the Fire's part.
Yeah, DJ, what did you see from your perspective?
On the broadcast, they only showed the thing once, which is kind of why I kind of got annoyed at them, because they're just saying, well, it looked offside. Well, it seems to be, well, blah, blah, blah. And they weren't actually showing the replay. But from where I was, it looked offside. And it was kind of one of those things where offside or not, again, like Tim said, it was 100% just a preventable error that happened. Brady didn't do well. Gutman didn't follow his man properly, blah, blah, blah. But it still was like, can you guys please show us the replay? Where you're saying what's happening, but we don't see anything.
Yeah, and this is the thing you don't think about before you actually start seeing it. I don't want to make this into a whole Apple TV thing, but especially this year when the broadcast was moved to the WWE studios, I think some of the production decisions have been interesting, right? Like, it's not the first time for people who have been watching games where you don't see the thing that you want to see. Like, sometimes live, they've had a shot of like a player that falls down and is literally on his butt while a guy's got a breakaway going the other direction and a goal scored. And it's like, would have been cool if you showed us that live.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened in the opening game, or the first Columbus goal we didn't even see.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's like that could have been early on. It's still going on, obviously, as this sort of proves. Oh well, I mean, again, lots of people could have done better on that one, I think, is the takeaway.
That is definitely the takeaway. And preventable goals. I mean, I feel like that was a huge case, especially you could see that, of course, for the second goal, which was assisted by one Chucky Lozano, that the defense was very much off their game. And miscommunication, I don't know if there was a drinking game for how many times I've said miscommunication on this podcast since we've started Men in Red, the blood alcohol content would be through the roof, essentially. Like, I feel like this is just, for some reason, a thing between Fire players since the move back to Soldier Field, just miscommunication.
You made it sound like it's a girl's name, where it's like miscommunication is like her title. Like if she gets a PhD, she'll be Dr. Communication.
Yeah, but still, I mean, you can
and that
sort of
goal
get the
also, by the
frustration.
way, that also seemed like it very well could seem off to me. It wasn't like the first goal where when it was scored, the guy that scored it is looking around being like, oh, you mean that counted? Oh, okay.
Wait,
So
yeah.
C'est la vie. All I can say is that
Still,
the second goal happened after some, end-to-end action, and the Fire certainly had chances in the first half. They were not able to finish any of them, and I think that has sort of become kind of a recurring issue with the team, right?
amen.
And it is what it is, right?
Yeah, especially I've noticed where it seems the Fire just get caught off guard way too many times, where it leads to a breakaway or a one-on-one, where the only thing that's stopping, that's preventing a goal from happening, is either goalkeeper save or just shot not going on target, or some last minute heroics from a defender that's running back. I felt like that's for some reason becoming a common mistake among the Fire back line, and just the Fire in general. That's something I definitely noticed within the last few games. We did,
and there's been a story throughout the season, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we were hoping that it'd be better by now. Obviously, there have been some headwinds again for the Fire, like not having anything close to their first choice center backs available,
of course,
and stuff like that. But again, like both of these goals were preventable. And I think it's fair to say in the first half, the Fire certainly had their share of chances. I think that San Diego were able to get back defensively faster than the Fire were able to generate things, and the Fire's finishing, which is not clinical enough. And they went down 2 goals.
Yeah. First of all, the Fire did get one back, and I can't remember who it was, or which game it was, but Tyler Terrence was I think it was the Cincinnati away game, where he was commentating and saying that the Fire are doing a lot better in terms of like getting on the score sheet no matter what. So we get that off the corner from Hugo Kuipers, but there's still also a bit of offensive trouble, and the name that's starting to really pop up is Jonathan Bamba. I read it was a comment that was saying like they're afraid that Jonathan Bamba is turning into the next Kacper Przybyłko.
I think that it's fair to say that Jonathan Bamba at this point has underperformed what I think a lot of us think that his potential may be. And I think the frustrating thing is, unlike Kacper Przybyłko, where you would see him, and I'm not trying to insult your countryman here, but like he would miss shots from point blank range that are like, how did you manage to sky that? Like some of the best athletes in the world could not get that ball at that high of an angle if they tried. And here you are doing it on the regular. Bamba, I think the thing is we've been seeing him do some stuff, on the ball, do some stuff off the ball. He doesn't seem to be making the runs at the right time at certain points.
Yeah.
He'll have some fancy footwork, and then he won't see the thing that he wants. If he's looking for a pass or a cross, he doesn't quite see the opportunity. Then he waits too long, and then the moment's kind of gone rather than attacking directly. And, it's, I think, been pretty frustrating. And, people have said they want to see more goals from him. I get that. I think in the end, I think the goals that he gets will be, in a weird way, byproducts of the assists that he gets. And what I mean by that is, I think that he is always going to be more of a creator, and the goal scoring opportunities will come when he starts being able to unleash his creativity and create for others a little bit quicker, because that will change the way that he and Philip Zinkernagel are defended, and maybe give him some more space. And that, plus confidence that I think you'd get with getting more assists, would give him a little bit of the confidence that he needs to start taking those shots in on goal. Now, Bamba does have 8 assists on the season, so it's not nothing, as well as 3 goals. 4 of those assists are secondary assists, or like the hockey assists, MLS assists, whatever you want to call it. And so without those, he would have 3 goals and 4 assists, which is frankly, I was talking to Joe Chatz about this yesterday at the game. And if Philip Zinkernagel and Jonathan Bamba had basically flipped seasons, right? If Bamba had put off had been putting up the numbers that we've seen from Zinkernagel, and if Zinkernagel had been putting up the numbers that we've seen from Bamba, I think everybody would be pretty happy. So I think the Fire are getting overall what they need from that position. I think the sort of frustrating thing is you've got one guy who's a little bit older in Philip Zinkernagel and coming on a contract for, about $1.5 million a year. And then the other, you've got a guy that's coming in as a DP making $5.5 million a year and is the one that's producing less. I think we'll see more from Bamba, but I think that it's I don't think it's going to happen in 2025, to be honest. And he's looked increasingly tired.
He has not had a break in over a year or two.
Exactly. And Hugo Kuipers said something interesting about that after the game. He basically said that he saw in Bamba's season what sort of something that looked pretty familiar to him, based on what happened when he came into the league in 2024, which is that like after a certain point, like you're just tired and you're not able to do all the things that you want to be able to do just because you've been so tired the entire time. And, I think you're seeing a little of that. Like you'll see times when Bamba's frustrated. Like there was a point where I didn't have the minute written down, but it's like he can't quite get to a ball as quickly as he wants. And then when he does, he like loses his balance. He gets kind of a shot off, but like it's not what he wanted. And afterwards, you can see the look on his face and he wasn't happy about it. And I think that that's what happens when your body is not moving the way that you expect it to move. And I think in Bamba's case, that's not because he's, getting too old or past his prime. I think that the issue is just that he is not moving as quickly as he wants because he's put a lot of minutes on his legs over the course of a season. And it's, not just the minutes that he's played competitively, but it just is having an honest to goodness, solid break when you're not in training and you're not being held to that same high physical standard all the time so that your body can do the kinds of healing that you don't get to do when you have like a day's recovery after a game and that kind of thing. And that's nothing to say negative about like the team's PT staff or anything like that. It's just, there's only so much you can do when you're constantly putting miles on your legs.
Worth noting, Zinkernagel got a break at the beginning of the season as well. Not because he wanted it, because he was injured, but I mean, even an injury break is still a break. Especially when you're coming from
Philip Zinkernagel, he was coming from a league that is on the MLS schedule, like the sort of like calendar year schedule starting in the spring and going through the fall, as opposed to the, schedule in most of Europe, which is, summer.
Didn't he come back playing for Genk for a decent amount of time? Or am I thinking wrong?
He did play for Genk, but he played for a lot of other places too. So I think he may have actually had a contract to, I believe that his last contract was with Bruges. But he spent the 2024 season on loan to Bodo Glimt, which is, a connection that Fire sporting director Greg Broughton has strong connections to. And I'm assuming that is probably how the deal happened from some way of hearing about him at Glimt. But Glimt is, in Norway, and they are very much on the same MLS schedule because Norway gets very much as cold or colder than it does here in the winter.
I want to go to Norway one day. I've heard many things, but yes, it does get very cold.
Well, ask Zink for restaurant recommendations if you do make the trip.
Speaking of, sorry, DJ, go ahead.
But no, I was going to say, but it does help out a lot that Bamba definitely needs that break. We know he's coming. We know he needs it. Without a doubt, I'm hopeful that when he gets back, it would not shock me if when he gets back from break, he does better, but not much better. And next year is the year where it's like, okay, this is the Bamba we wanted. Similar to, I can't remember who it was that had this same problem. Tim Cahill.
Yeah, and I think that, I think we've had David Goss on the podcast a couple of times in different capacities. Most recently to talk about the new stadium. It's called the Goss theorem, but basically the theorem that a lot of players don't really hit their stride in Major League Soccer until the second year. And I mean, there's a lot that's demanding about this league, right? Like it's the travel. A lot of leagues in Europe, it may be a few hours on a bus after the match, but you go home and you get back to your home ground and you drive, and you're sleeping in your own bed that night. That's not what happens in MLS. It's a longer flight and you stay out the night before. And all those kinds of things. So the travel, like the heat, like we've had Club World Cup players saying that they don't think that the games in 2026 in the FIFA International Team World Cup should be taking place in the afternoon or during the day because it's too hot. And
they got to stop
I
appealing to the European viewer and appeal to the public, the people that are actually there.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that it says something about just like the way that I think that, obviously players can do it, but it takes your body time to adapt. And I think a lot of players are just not used to it. And I think that Bomba's one of those players. So I think all those things, I honestly think that he is due for a much stronger 2026. But obviously right now we've got a team that is fighting for a playoff spot once again on the outside looking in just narrowly. And they, need all the help they can get. And that includes from one of their only two designated players on the roster at the moment, right? And I think that the frustrating thing is there's a sense that Bomba is not getting enough, doing enough to be helping the team achieve that at the moment. And I get it, but like, again, I don't think he's been a disappointment. And I think that we'll see a lot more from him in 2026. I think the question is, as you alluded to, DJ, like with the Fire's, break coming up at the end of July, what is it? It's almost exactly a 2-week break. Like how much recovery can he get there? Realizing that there was also a shorter break earlier in the season. And will he have enough in the tank to keep on producing and maybe start producing more between now and, the end of the regular season in October?
It would not shock me going a little bit further down the line if through the rest of the season, if it starts becoming clear like the Fire either are not going to make the playoffs or they're going to be like really close, it would not shock me to start seeing Bray not start Bomba, just so that he makes sure Bomba is healthy for not just this offseason if we get there, but also for the postseason, but next year as well.
Yeah, and I think Greg has talked about the need. I was surprised with how open he was about it, but the need to sort of get him off the pitch and manage his minutes as best as possible. But I think that we've seen time and time again, like we've got enough evidence of this now. The way that Greg wants to do that is by basically like starting with the best 11 that he can muster. And then I think that the hope would be that if the team is up, 2-0 at half instead of down 2-0 at half, you then feel a lot better about taking a guy like Joe Bomba off and putting in another option. Although I think that there is a capable option on the bench that can play at that position in Marin Haile Selassie.
Absolutely. I was just about to mention Marin Haile Selassie. He's proven it. So, give him a chance.
And, set up the goal, the Fire's only goal from Hugo Kuipers. He was the one that had the kind of like in-swinging corner to the far post, which, I think significantly, and this is going to be one of the things that comes into play in my 5 things, which is, should be up by the time that this is out. But the corner service to Kuipers was not a header. It went to his feet. And he was able to get it, corral it the right way quickly and get it in the back of the net. And that's something that we haven't seen as effectively from Kuipers with headers. He had a couple headed looks on goal, and notably none of them ended up in the back of the goal. And so it's not that, Kuipers can't score headers, but that's really not the best position for him to be scoring goals from. We've seen, a year and a half of this now, and I think that we know it. So it's good that Marin was able to get him that service that got the Fire on the board and at least made it, interesting for the last few minutes, even though they couldn't quite get that equalizer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, but that game. One thing I want to sort of wrap up our talk of San Diego is maybe something that people both watching on TV and in the stadium might have questioned. What was going on in the supporter group. We definitely were doing things a little bit differently. So basically, Sector Latino and Section 8 were blacked out. So we wore all black in support of the supporters who got banned for a banner that was protesting against a government agency. So first 15 minutes, the group was silent. Our march to the stadium was silent, and we faced the screen. After 15 minutes, we started playing. And at the 80th minute, this was planned from the beginning. We marched out of the from the lower bowl into the concourse where uh, a banner was displayed. You probably could have even seen it. It said, "Football is nothing without its supporters." There was also a banner in Spanish, which, if I remember correctly, the translation was, "We care about you, but you don't, but you never care about us." So
Yeah, not exactly. I believe it was "We are always with you, but you are never with us." So that seems to have been directed. Yeah, it seems to be directed at the front office after
yes.
3 supporters were banned. I think in reference to the support that Fire supporters are giving the team, but feeling like that wasn't reciprocated in the case of the banner and getting 3 members banned from the stadium.
And before anyone asks, and I spoke with our supporter liaison, the banners were pre-approved, and they were along with MLS uh, guidelines. So they were able to be there and be able to be displayed. So this was very much a different experience. And honestly, you could, I mean, you guys can say, from either the broadcast perspective or from the perspective in the press box, it was kind of eerily quiet.
Yeah, I tweeted that out, during basically right at the end of the 15 minutes, but it didn't quite feel like a COVID game because like the fans in the stands outside of the supporters section would still, cheer and clap and stuff like that when things happen. But it felt a lot more like a tennis match than it did a soccer game.
Mhm.
And it was just interesting to see sort of like that, just the way that the atmosphere felt so completely different. And I know, this is actually going to be the first thing in my 5 things for this week, but it's, I think that the Fire supporters have gotten a lot of flack for what's perceived to be the lack of game day atmosphere sometimes. Soldier Field does not do any favors to that whatsoever. It forces the sound out and not to stay in. And that's something that like the venues that you're thinking about as having some of the, better supporters groups, like Timber's Army is probably like at the top of the list, right? Like they have a massive, timber roof above them that is pushing sound back into the stadium. And I think that's a big part of the difference. And
which is why I'm
the
super
difference
excited for the new Fire Stadium.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the things that's going to make a huge difference. But it was shocking how different the game felt without the efforts of organized support in the stadium. It felt like a completely different game. It felt not quite like a friendly because of the intensity on the pitch and stuff like that, but it certainly didn't feel like a Fire game. It completely changed the atmosphere.
One last thing I wanted to say before we move on is you very much in those first 15 minutes could tell who are the active supporters and who are people that usually go because they're cheaper tickets and you can get fairly close to the pitch. Like literally as we were standing and are facing our backs, there was a group, like a family behind me that they were like, "Can you guys move? We can't see anything." And I was like, did you read the ticket guideline, like the outline that says this is a standing section?" Question mark. So yeah, I'm just hoping that that's something that, when we get our new stadium in 2.5 years or something, that'll kind of be resolved, question mark.
Yeah, I would assume. I know that the team is actively looking at some of the possibilities for that. And, there's going to be everything that any change, right? Like it will be controversial a little bit. Something that a lot of other teams have done is make it so that supporters tickets are available through supporters groups. The advantage of that obviously is that the supporters groups can be, the ones that are aware of who's going. So it's either members of the supporters groups or somebody that's like, I am bringing my friend to his first Fire game or whatever, right? And the advantage of that is like then everyone knows, right? Because there's no way to just accidentally buy one of the tickets, no matter what is said on the statement. The downside of that, of course, is that you have to be a member then of a registered supporters group or connected to someone who is to be able to get a ticket. And sometimes there's ways in between where they can sometimes make some available. But like, again, there's no perfect solution. I know the team is actively looking for ways to increase the things that make the supporters
Active
create such a
supporters.
like the game day atmosphere and stuff like that, right? And I think that there'll be a lot more to come. But I think the first thing is just going to be getting the. I think officially they're aiming to have 1,997 supporters spots available. I think that they will probably be the safe standing kind of spots, so not exactly seats in the new stadium.
I am so excited
we'll
for those. I'm so excited, honestly, genuinely. Let's move on to our next topic at hand, which is the midweek game in Atlanta. So the Fire are going back on the road for both the games this week. So they're playing in Atlanta on Wednesday, and then they travel up to Quebec to play against Montreal. But we're just going to be talking about Atlanta. So their last game, they drew 1-1 against Toronto at Toronto. They also haven't won a game since May 28th. They only have 2 wins since the beginning of April when they had back-to-back games at home. They're currently 12th in the Eastern Conference with 19 points with a 4-3-3 home record. So, a lot of people in the preseason, they were expecting them to have, be a potential top team in the league, but they really haven't been close to that. So, I mean, the question is, since
one thing before we move on, though, just a little bit on this. I think it would be remiss if we didn't mention that Illinois native Atlanta United president and CEO Garth Lagerwey was the team just announced on Thursday that he will be taking an indefinite leave of absence because of a cancer diagnosis. The team did say in their statement that Lagerwey has begun treatment. There's not a timetable for him returning to office, but the prognosis of a complete recovery are encouraging. And Garth Lagerwey is widely considered to be one of the best executives in the league for a variety of reasons. One of the things that's been really refreshing about him is how open he's willing to be. Like, he's talked a lot about some of the things that I think a lot of fans think about, of like, how do we look at the U22 initiative, and like, what's the best way to use these slots, and what are how are teams navigating this, and how are teams deciding, if a guy's worth, say, bringing in a TAM deal or a DP deal. What are some of the challenges with assembling a winning roster, given the roster rules and stuff like that? And Garth has gone on the radio, done interviews on podcasts, just talked to people in general, and said a lot of it with openness that we don't normally get from executives. So, it's really unfortunate to hear the news. It's good to hear that he's in treatment and that the team is hopeful for with the prognosis. And I think that all of us wish Garth a speedy recovery. And hope to see him back, into his role as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are with you, everyone at Men in Red and the MLS soccer community. So ahead of Atlanta, the game at Atlanta, first of all, we have to go back a few games, including the Open Cup game. We're seeing that Greg is very stingy about changing up his team. The only thing that really changed is maybe like the wing backs, or just one or two small changes. Are we seeing we're seeing tired legs essentially? We have, this is game 5 out of 6 in 2 weeks. So, how would we expect, or how would we want to see this team line up in the Wednesday game against Atlanta, and then possibly, maybe Montreal a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing, I think is going to be curious. I was a little bit surprised to see Leo Barroso starting on Saturday. I thought that he had a pretty good game. He wasn't perfect by any means, but I think that you can start to see, or once again, I don't think it's ever really been hidden, but I think you can see why the team believes he's got such a high ceiling. I think it'll be interesting to see if he plays again on Wednesday, or if Dean starts. And if Dean does start, especially in that right fullback spot, I would be interested to see if he's rotated off at some point, one way or the other, to give Leo minutes on either as a starter or off the bench. And I think that that's one place I think we may see some rotation. And I said this earlier, but I think that we kind of know who the starting 11 are. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if we saw a little bit of rotation in the midfield, just based on some of what we've seen over the past week. We saw Kawame come off the bench, and I thought look pretty effective, like not perfect, but I think we can definitely, I think it was a good reminder of some of the strengths that he's shown. I thought was really good carrying the ball forward. Some rough edges with some of his performance. Like I think that maybe defensively there were a couple lapses here and there, but he was able to do some of the things that I think like the midfield has been missing. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a start, or again, like maybe like a planned substitution, right?
DJ, how would you want to see this team field against Atlanta?
Full honesty, I kind of agree with Tim. I think it would also be a good idea to switch up the midfield. Honestly, I think this time you get Kawame, you get Jay Davia. I think maybe even start more in the midfield, give him a shot there, or start Philip and start Zinkernagel in midfield, just because I think the guys there just need a little bit of a rest for right now, because you have this game and then on Saturday, I forget who they're playing again.
Montreal. So
yeah, so it's like kind of position yourself ready for what will probably be two games that the game against Atlanta, you should win it, but also it's one of those games where, they could win easily as well. But Montreal's the game where you're like, yeah, we got to get that one without it out.
Yeah, I mean, and like that's the thing. They're both, it's, the Fire's previous matches, right? Like as it stands right now, FC Cincinnati is currently tied for second in the league with San Diego. San Diego is top of the West and second in the league. The Philadelphia Union are currently ahead of the Supporter Shield race. I mean, it was an Open Cup game, but Minnesota United's second in the West right now. Like, the Fire have also had games recently against Nashville. They're currently third in the East. Like,
we just had a lot of rough matches, essentially.
Yeah, and I mean, so the only team that is sort of like mid-table that the Fire have played in recent weeks was Charlotte, who are currently one spot ahead of the Fire and in that final postseason spot, number 9. And we saw the way the team played in 2 matches against Charlotte this season, right? Like the team felt like they were a tier above Charlotte. Right now, they're a tier below them in the standings, and it's because and Greg has been pretty open about this. The team has struggled to get results against teams that are the top in the league. They did have that early season win in Vancouver. I don't think that you can discount that win. Anyone from Vancouver will say that they were missing, like 6 starters because the game was being played during the international window. That's fair. The Fire were also without their starting goalie for 5 weeks recently. And that game in Vancouver, they were missing a bunch of players due to injury. So like there's stuff that goes on in every match, but the Fire's schedule being easier a little bit going forward. Atlanta and CF Montreal are both behind the Fire in the standings pretty significantly. And so in terms of where the Fire are in their season, right? 13 games left to go. If they're going to make the postseason, and I think that they will, they need to get results against teams that I think that the Fire are better than and have played better than. And Atlanta United, like you talked about how long it's been since they won. The one goal they had in that last game against Toronto, and again, Toronto are also a bad team, so was from Emmanuel Latelath. That was his first goal since March, and he came over and he came over in a very significant transfer fee. I think close to a league record transfer fee. He's making significant money. I want to say that it was reportedly 21 million euros, give or take, is what I believe he came over on. That's 1.5 times what Hugo Kuipers was. He's got 6 goals on the year, and some of them penalties, and none have, like, only one of them has happened since March. And so like this team has looked pretty desperate. They've looked pretty identityless. And Ronnie Dyla, their head coach, has not really had solutions all year. So against a team like that, like on one hand, Atlanta are bad. Most commentators going into the season had them in the playoffs. in their preseason predictions, which like famously like are just the only reason those exist is to make people that talk about the league or talk about teams the way that we do look like idiots, because that's what always ends up happening. But I think Atlanta are better than their record right now. They just haven't played like it because they haven't been able to get it together. And you kind of think that like MLS teams frequently find a way to get it together at some point in the season. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen against the Fire, but I'm saying that, I think you were kind of hinting at this a little bit, Alan. Like it kind of has the makings of potentially being a trap game.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like whenever it's just like you mentioned, it just happens so many times where the Fire are playing against a team that are below them, a team that they know they can beat, and then and if it's or in like win it and you're in situations and it just does not happen for some reason. So
although I will say this, the last kind of two mid-table teams that the Fire have played, as weird as this sounds to say, Charlotte on June 28th, that was a 3-2 win. It was, we talked about the game when it happened. I think it was a more comfortable win than the 3-2 scoreline makes it seem like. And before that, I guess May 25th against New York City FC, which was a 3-1 loss in a game where the Fire went down a man early. The red cards are part of the team's story this season, but I think that you say that that's probably not going to happen again. And the match before that was against Orlando City when they were on a massive winning streak. The team went down a man. This is starting to sound like a trend, right? And it became a 0-0 draw in the first minutes that, we actually saw, Chris Brady out of the net, and we finally saw what Jeff Gall can do in net. And so the team against opponents like that in 2025, unlike previous seasons, has been getting the job done. It's just there haven't been a lot of matches like that. And early in the season, there was, I think the thing that you're maybe thinking about, DJ, was the home opener, where the team frankly didn't play as well as they could have and ended up with a 2-2 draw against DC.
Yeah, I think so.
This team sometimes gives me a migraine. That's why I keep a bottle of Tylenol on me.
Right. And so, it's 2 games on the road. We have talked about the Fire's impressive road performances. 2 teams that the Fire are better than on the road. Like, I mean, look, it's kind of like, this is MLS, right? So it's weird that in a way that there's a legitimate supporter shield race on between so many teams in the league. But I think what's even more impressive than the supporters shield race has just been the wooden spoon race, because like some teams are pushing for this shield. Like, don't get me wrong. Like the Philadelphia Union, 43 points after 22 matches. That's impressive. Like, you're almost getting 2 points a game. Cool. Cincinnati, Nashville, Columbus even are on their heels. Inter Miami are in the pack because they've got a bunch of games in hand. San Diego, Minnesota are right there. Like Vancouver's not that far off. Like, that's cool. The real competition that teams seem to be really pushing hard for is the wooden spoon, right? Atlanta are not in that conversation, but they're also 4 points ahead of CF Montreal, who are very much in the conversation with a negative 22 goal differential. Like the competition to be the worst team in MLS is fierce this season, and the Fire have games against like some of those teams coming up soon.
Incredible. I'm excited for that. I was talking with some MLS friends, and Battle of the Wooden Spoon. They said, can't wait for that. So, predictions, gentlemen, for Atlanta. DJ, where do you stand?
I think it's going to be a close but 2-1 win.
All right. Close 2-1 win. Tim, what are you thinking? Same thing?
3-1 win. I think it's going to be more comfortable. Wouldn't surprise me at all if the Fire had a 4th. I'm going to say that we see Bamba getting on the score sheet. I'm not going to say goal or assist. I think that Hugo's probably going to get another one. But I hope that the last Fire goal is from somebody completely random, because I think that, everyone sort of needs that. It wouldn't be crazy at all to see Philip Zinckernagel again just continue the performance that made him an all-star, though.
Speaking of of that. During the tailgate, one of the people that like walk around with the camera to like record activities and whatnot came up to me. They were like, "Hey, would you like to send a message to Philip Zinkernagel ahead of the All-Star game?" And I was like, "Sure," and I told him like, "We're behind you, we're with you, you'll do awesome and whatnot." And I started playing my saxophone, so that was pretty cool. In terms of my prediction against Atlanta, my days. I honestly want to say 2-0. I want that clean sheet. I want it. I'm manifesting Chris Brady clean sheet, and I'm hoping the communication between the back line and the midfield can be strengthened, and that Brady can get a clean sheet for this game. So, yeah, that's what I believe.
Cool.
Let's
so it's going to be a
manifest.
quick turnaround for you and for all of us, right?
Yep.
Midweek match, and then we've already kind of like talked a little bit about CF Montreal today, but we'll talk about what happened in Atlanta, and we'll talk about what we think will happen in Montreal next Saturday.
Yeah, and then if I remember correctly, after the Montreal game is the All-Star break, question mark? Or is that later?
No,
Later.
It's later.
Okay.
Yeah, the Fire's last game is the 26th. So like the Fire have a 3-game homestand that's not really going to feel like a 3-game homestand just because of the spacing of the matches. But the Fire are back at home following that.
Against the Red Bull.
Yep.
And we'll see Chance the Rapper.
Just the one Red Bull, not all of them.
Not all
ignore
of them.
the team name. Yeah, just one.
Which speaking of, Tim, did you stay for the Danny Lux concert?
Yes, I was fieldside for part of it. We missed the beginning because we were talking to people. Yeah, it was good. He's man, it's very weird to see a guy that's like that young because he's like a little bit more than half my age, singing so dramatically about like how bad life is and like how he'll like never know love and stuff like never know. Danny Lux is like 21. Like,
he's younger than me. Jeez.
Yeah. And like some of the lyrics are just like, very dramatic. Somebody Mexican American that I was talking to about him said basically like we don't pay for therapy. Instead, we just like sing about stuff like this and listen to music like this. And like that's our therapy.
I feel like it's very similar for Polish people, but you got to add some Roman Catholicism to that. Last thing I'm going to say is that the Fire, they've had a sponsorship for the whole Sound the Alarm thing with Zippo, and they finally released a Fire brand, like a Fire logo Zippo lighter, and they had those at the game. So if you think they were game exclusive, they're not. If you go to the Zippo website, you can get them for the same price that they were at the game. Now, of course, I had a season ticket discount, so it was slightly cheaper. Maybe they'll have them at the at following games, but if you can't go to the games, they are on the website. If you go to the Zippo website to get them there. So, any last words for this episode to leave our fans ruminating about something?
I think we're good. You take us out, yeah.
Pizza, all right, swinging. So, ladies and gentlemen, and they thems of the Fire, we will see you later in the week after the Atlanta game to cover that game as well as preview more in-depth Montreal, and then we'll get that episode out later on as well. But for now, I've been Alan the Pole with a goal, joined by DJ and Tim. Shout out to, of course, to our producer Austin. And shout out, of course, John and Matt, who couldn't be on this episode. So, love out them, sending love out to them, as well as all the writers and the people behind the scenes at Men in Red 97. Remember, meninred97.com. Follow MIR as well as MIR97 Pods on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Follow Men in Red 97 on Instagram. And as always, till now, till forever, come on, you Men in Red.